Good evening and welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. I'm your host, Kim B. Davis, and this evening we have one of our favorite guests. You know, we have Dr. Angela Celeste May. I have to read all of her titles because she is a super duper phenomenal. She is our organizational, forensic, and clinically trained psychologist. She is president and co-founder of A.M. May and Associates. She is the president and founder of Celeste Productions Incorporated. She is the immediate past president of the Michigan Psychological Foundation Board, and she is an author, musician, and she is also a trustee of the Michigan Health Council. Good evening, Dr. Angie. How are you today?
I'm fantastic today. Very, very well. Thank you for asking. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much. I'm always happy to be on with you. But I want to talk about an important topic because, you know, there is so much happening in our world. And our topic for tonight is protecting our peace. And before we get to that, I just want to send out a prayer for the Ukrainian people who are under siege as of right now. Russia has officially invaded them. And, you know, people are calling this a precursor to World War III. And it is devastating. It is terrifying. And with all that is happening in our world, from COVID is still here. We have white nationalism issues and racism in our country. We are politically divided in a time where we never have before, where people can't have civil discourse without asking that the other person be arrested, jailed, killed, all these terrible things. And I'm wondering, okay, Ukraine is being invaded. Do we see what's happening? Vladimir Putin wants to reconstitute the USSR and has always wanted to do that. And it's interesting because he was the former head of the KGB. And I remember when the USSR disbanded and there was talk of, well, there were people that did not want that to happen. And he was one of them. And Gorbachev was able, of course, to move ahead with plans and the world rejoiced. And we sort of went through this honeymoon period. Now here we are, for the lack of a better analogy, in a marriage where the world is trying to figure out how to deal with this angry spouse, this spouse that is just, I'm mad. I'm going to go over to Ukraine because they wanted to be a part of NATO. You can't do that. You're my wife. You're going to stay right here and do exactly as I tell you. And some people, you know, I don't want anyone to be offended by that, but I look at it as this is someone with grandiose ideas that they know better than another country. And to me, that is extremely frightening, because if you think that you know better than them, then that also means that you think that you know better than me and that you would make decisions for me. And oftentimes, Dr. Angie, in life, we have people who will say that to each other. It could be our family members, it could be our friends, it could be our coworkers. And oftentimes we will sit back and go, oh, I got to protect my peace. It's my grandma. She going to tell me that I'm fat. I know I'm fat. It's been pandemic. I've been eating sweet potato. That's my favorite pie. Sweet potato pie, because that's the only way I know how to cope. And Dr. Angie has been busy and I couldn't get in an appointment, get my therapy, but I'm going to protect my peace. Nah. So when I go to my granny's house, I'm going, ooh, she's not going to say what she's going to say to me. And if she does, I'm just suck it down, suck it down, suck it down, push it down, push it down. And, you know, even on social media, you have people who will say, because I know I had to pull back from social media because it got to the point that even if I posted a news article, I had posted something a couple weeks ago about Ahmaud Arbery's killers. I believe it was a few days ago. They were just convicted on federal charges. And I just posted a link and someone responded back, well, they haven't charged Ashley Bobbitt's killer. And I said, I'm not interacting with you. You want to fight. I don't know who you are. I know what actually happened because we saw it on television. For those that don't know, they actually showed that. We saw it. And I understand the circumstances. Now, there is no reason for anyone to be killed. However, sometimes when we put ourselves in difficult situations, bad things happen. That was a bad thing that happened for the wrong reason.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, Dr. Angie, help people navigate through difficult situations, whether it's coworkers, whether it's marriage? There was a news story on this morning that was saying you need to figure out when to argue with your spouse. Sometimes it's the wrong time. Sometimes you got to make sure people aren't too tired or hungry. Sometimes you got to make sure that, somebody's not caring for the kids. And I started laughing because I was like, yeah, all that is true, because it can be a wrong time to argue. Because again, you're trying to protect your peace. So with war, with social media raging, political divisions, economic uncertainty, and I said political division, I'll say it twice because it is terrifying in this country, what's actually happening. How do you advise people to protect their peace, or what are some ways that we can, or techniques that we can do to help protect our peace?
Wow. Wow. Let's just sit with that. That's a lot. But you're right. All of that and more is what's going on, right? Mm-hmm. The first, I've said this before. Now I reiterate it as much as I can. That whole idea of there's nothing new under the sun, as much as it looks like it is. I definitely would say that the first thing that comes to mind that I would recommend to people is to look back, because as a human race, we have survived some stuff.
Yes.
and we're still here. Mm-hmm. We've had mad meaning psychologically unhinged, powerful people who are just power hungry and gobbling up countries and all of that. We've had, from A to Z, as a human race, we've just about seen it all. Although there are some things we haven't seen it all, but just generally speaking, it just continues to amaze and surprise us. Like people say, is there no bottom? How low, how far will people go? But I think that looking back is really, really helpful, and it's instructive, because we are hardwired to survive and to fight for survival. And when we're threatened, that's kind of like, for the most part, that's naturally kind of what comes up as an individual or as a group of people or whomever. So we're not here today as humans, and we're not here in this particular country as we are with the freedoms that we still have by accident. We didn't just stumble into it. Looking back over history, it's that same idea of you need to know where you came from in order to know where you're going. Mm-hmm. The tools that worked in the past are still just as strong and just as viable for helping us to not just survive, but get through it and thrive. And one of the most important tools, and I would definitely say, and I know you would agree with this, so much of what we're seeing in our country in particular, but also around the world with our Putins and all these, I love the spousal analogy. That's unexpected, but it makes sense. It makes sense. So much of what we're seeing, that first tool, I would say, is we've really gotten away from a spiritual center, to say the least, in this country. And even when we were more spiritually focused, as far as at the very minimum honoring things of God, the idea of polite, like I tell people, especially young people, I don't know what this political correct, because I don't understand that, because back in my day it was called being polite. Yes. And you were polite not because you were just tippy-toeing around people. It was actually connected to respect. Like, mm-hmm. You don't just say everything to people, or any and everything just comes to mind out of respect, out of not wanting to harm another person. The spiritual focus, that honoring God, comes with it all those other things, like putting certain parameters around yourself so that you can respect the other person, so that, doing unto others as you would want them to treat you. Just those things that were instilled. We weren't perfect at it, we were maybe most religious while they thought that it was okay to buy and sell our people.
Yes.
Folks were going to church every Sunday.
Sure were.
And believing that the scripture told them to do it. So, you know, it takes, you know, there's a lot, there's more to that. It takes living it, you know, in the way it's stated. But even still, we've lost that, what people will call like the moral center kind of thing. So with this being Black History Month, even though we know every month is Black History Month, of course it is.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was looking at some of the postings that people have made of some of the snippets of Martin Luther King, some that have not been shared as much. And he really, it wasn't just him, of course, so many people in the struggle, but he really, I think, typified this combination of real intellectual insight from study, like study and reading and learning and knowing the history, you know, married with a vigorous, rigorous spiritual life. And it really, I was thinking about this last couple of days because it really, I mean, I think about this anyway, but I was especially thinking about this because of, like you say, with all this happening right now, we have to remember that we did not get emancipated. And I hate to say that we got emancipated because we fought for that. Yes. We pushed for that. Yeah. It wasn't like some great hope that just, you know, that was fighting and pushing and, you know, for so long, and multiple rebellions and all of that kind of stuff. But we didn't get emancipated, or rather I should say, I really don't believe we would have gotten to the place of freedom if we didn't have that key part of that prayerfulness, prayer, calling on God as the center of all the strategy and the research and the work and the planning and all that. It was just hand in hand, if not the center. And then you take it to the earlier civil rights movement, and then the 60s civil rights movement, same thing. That was just the cornerstone. So and it worked. It's still not perfect. We know that, but we're not mandated to go to the back of the bus. We're not, I mean, some things actually, you know, did work over time. So I think that looking back, or I know that looking back, learning some lessons from history and what worked is really, really important. So I would say for ourselves in this moment to start at home, start with ourselves, start with our loved ones, the people closest to us, and practice that, the respect, the loving, overt loving honor of each other. And you had mentioned the arguing. When you do argue with respect. There's certain lines you don't cross. You know, practicing that in your within our own homes and our own lives. And also I always talk about mental habits. It's not going to work if you're saying it only out here and in your head you're just calling them everything you come up with. You know, it's got to be authentic, and we have to, like any other muscle, you got to work on that and practice that every day. It may seem like a little thing because it's, well, that's just me in my house, whatever, but that's where it starts. And it emanates from there. And I have seen myself the power of that change when you take that practice in your own home, in your own life, in your own head and heart, and you interact with people in the world. I've seen it make a difference, change minds, de-escalate the violent conversation. But you have to have a starting point, and you have to have an anchor of some kind. For me as a Christian, the anchor is God, and staying prayerful, and how should I move in the world, when to speak, when not to, what to say when I do. And I have seen it over and over again, really, when people expect it, that it was about to be a big argument and fight, really de-escalated. It didn't turn into that because I didn't come at them that way. And then, of course, you know, knowing when to walk away a little bit. Having a spiritual anchor, starting with love and respect in your own heart and mind and life, knowing when to walk away. Like you said, the who's our when, you know, exhaling and breathing, not demand. It could be frustrating, but not demanding that everyone agree or understand where you're coming from in the moment. It does. They may, they may over time, but I think just learning, even that's a lesson from our history too, because that's another thing that as we teach young people, so many of the gains that we've gotten as Black people in this country, that they came, even the arrests we're seeing now, like, sadly, it's a huge big deal for officers to be held accountable in the South in 2022. So glad we're finally seeing this, but we got to these kinds of changes after, I don't want to say failures, but running into roadblocks and no over and over again. And it's like they say, it's not that you weren't successful, not that you failed that time, but it's what you do with it. And the people who really fought, who came before us and who are doing it now, they just never stop. They never stop fighting. So I think those are really important lessons. Never stop fighting. Look at the history and how our people have survived, and people have survived. What were the tools? Those anchors of love, respect, spiritual groundedness. All together, they're very powerful. And I want to add this too. I am so proud of the Ukrainian people.
Yes.
I love their attitude. They are standing up. They are standing together and led by their president. That's wonderful to see. And that's so important. It's really, really important, because we know that Putin is also trying to play a mental game.
Yes.
Of psych you out with not just the people, but with the US and, all of that for sure. So I think already he's expecting them to crumble, but I think already he's surprised at the way that they are just like, nope. Nope, something else too. They're not members of NATO. I am so glad to see our president, Joseph R. Biden, get those agreements, work on those agreements with Germany and our other allies to stand together with the Ukrainian people who are not members of NATO, but to fight, really stand up and fight. And I think that's something else, if I may speculate, I think that's something else that Putin did not expect. So that's another lesson for us individually in our personal lives, that support system around you. Having that support system around you. If there are people within that system who are becoming kind of toxic, the same idea of knowing when to maybe step away from them a little bit, have your supports around you who are fighting with you, so those are some right there. I think those are some.
And I agree with you. Those are some great techniques, remembering where you have come from, remembering the lessons of the past, never stop fighting, having that moral center. Oftentimes, and I have friends, and my generation is sort of a sandwich generation where we are taking care of children and we're taking care of aging parents and grandparents. And for some of us, we are struggling because now we have taken on a parental relationship with our parents. And our parents are like, I brought you in this world. Who are you to tell me that you're going to take my keys away from me and I can't drive? You sitting over there, you know what I've done? I fought in World War II and this and that. And I'm exaggerating, but there are lots of people that are having conversations like this, and they're difficult because their parents are going through dementia and Alzheimer's. And it is a struggle because you are taking care of an adult who is now dependent upon you, and they're angry. Some of them have become very difficult and combative, where they're actually fighting with their children or they're fighting with their caregivers. Then this person actually has their own family that they're trying to manage. And a lot of people are cracking under the pressure. And I have friends who will call me and say, "Oh, I had to go see my mother today. She's fine, but oh, firecracker. And, they talk about consistently how this person will belittle them, how people will say insulting things, because this is, as you said earlier in your example, well, this is just how me and my household, this is how we do it. And so you will have people who will say that, well, this is who I am. You take it or leave it. I'm blunt. I just say what I feel. Okay, well, as you just said a little while ago, you say things with respect. You think about things that you're going to say. Is it expedient? Is it helpful? We know this from studying the Bible. When you think about what needs to be said, is it helpful? Is it going to bring this person closer to God? Is it going to bring this situation that may have resulted in a disagreement to a close? Or is this going to cause further strife? And a lot of people haven't or don't understand how to do that or understand that lesson. Dr. Angie, how, as people, can we manage other people who consistently step over the line in disrespect and behavior when we're trying to protect our peace, especially family members?
Yeah, I laugh because that is exact. I'm experiencing that right now. Not with a blood relative, but longtime family friend, who is, basically is family. And she was in her case, it's not dementia or anything like that, but is defensive when saying things that are inappropriate and or blunt, because that's part of her personality a little bit. And when she recognizes it, then she definitely will kind of like do her version of an apology or whatever. But her initial response is, before she's prayed about it, is to just be defensive and, you're just too sensitive type of thing. So I would say, I laugh because I have had to have, which is, it's good for me, good growth for me. I've had to put her where she is. And it's that balance of praying with expectation. She's grown a lot over the years. Absolutely. So we pray with expectation that people will grow and change, and she definitely has. But at the same time, recognizing where she is at this time, and stop getting my feelings hurt so much when I recognize how much of this is her stuff, and how and that it's not me. I am absolutely all about, shine a flashlight on me. And matter of fact, that's my first, reaction. Was something I did, or where I'm, so, and sometimes the answer is yes. We need to be open to self-introspection also. So a few things I would say is, number one, recognize why people do stuff. But in order to do that, so maybe that's number two, in order to do that, number one, we need to really take a step back. Because the natural inclination is to talk about what she did and what he did and blah, blah, blah. So you're so busy on that. And that's where you're upset that you don't stop, pause, take a step back, see the trees and the forest, see both the forest and the trees, and say, okay, let me look at this. Is there anything that I may have done, or whatever the case? Where is this person at? If it is a matter of dementia or Alzheimer's, people need to be educated about the symptoms of those, because those are diagnosed and diagnosable illnesses. And those outbursts, the anger, the accusations, and all the unfortunately ugly things that people will say, that's part of Alzheimer's for a lot of people, unfortunately. So knowing that doesn't automatically make it easier, but it helps to put it in a particular place. It can still be painful because this is someone you love, and this is someone who who is your parent or who raised you. But I think one example that I sometimes share with people is, or I say a lot of times actually, is if they had a physical illness, and I got this from my mom too. If they had a physical illness, she would say, and they were in intensive care and hooked up and not, difficulty breathing, and they had all these physical symptoms. Typically, you wouldn't go in there and start yelling and screaming at them because they're not running track. I mean, you see them as ill. Mental and psychological illnesses, of course, they're harder. They can be more difficult because they're not tangible. We can't really see it in the way you see physical disabilities. But think of it as the illness that it is, and recognize that the outbursts and the insults and all that are part of, that's their being intensive care. That's them being ill. though recognizing it like that helps to give them some space, a little bit of space, that it's not, they're not meaning to attack me. And another part of that is the walking in their shoes and the empathy. Well, that's part of the empathy, but another part of the empathy is how painful this must be for them. A lot of times when people are doing those outbursts and stuff, going back to what I was saying about looking at why, they're terrified. Things are changing and they don't understand. They don't have words for what's happening. Sometimes they don't recognize you as who you are, and they see you as an enemy there to take things away from you. If you put yourself in that position and try to understand where they're coming from and what it feels like for them, that can go all of those things can go a long way toward the caregiver, being able to go in there with, okay, they may attack me. They may attack me, but I'm really going to work on understanding what that's about. And what I started to say, because I was interrupting myself, because I had another thought, but I started to say was also one other thing too is I think the rewounding that happens when you care about someone. It doesn't have to be a relative. It could be your job as a caregiver. You still care about people, one would hope, or get out of that job if you don't.
Exactly.
But if you care and you love people, and you're a caregiver, I think the rewounding happens also when people are you may have had a good day with them, let's say the last time you saw them, and so you're happy about that, and so it's expectations. You go in with the expectation that they'll be different and be better, and again, all things are possible. It doesn't mean that they won't, but I think that when you go in with that expectation, and then it happens, it's like getting blindsided again each time anew. And that is, just again, particularly painful. So I think really taking it all together think of it as an illness, as if they're intensive care. This is a symptom. This is really painful and scary for them. And in their minds, they're like fighting for their lives. They're trying to protect themselves and all the rest. They're not trying to harm you. It's about their terror. And really think of it as terror for them. No matter how strong they may seem when they're yelling at you. I think all of that will help. And when you go in there, keeping those things in mind, and then you may react a little bit differently.
And it is important to keep those things in mind, understanding where people are. And oftentimes that's where many of life's disagreements and difficulties come from. It comes from a lack of understanding. Another lack of understanding, and I'm going to quote this particular phrase: comparison is the thief of joy. And oftentimes we will have people who will say, oh, such and such's mother has Alzheimer's, but she's so sweet and so kind. And then I have my mother, and it's like terror. What did I do? Why is this happening to me? Or you will have someone else who will say, I struggled and I went to school and I got 3 degrees and I'm still not where I want to be. And then you see someone else who doesn't have a degree and you're trying to figure out, now, how did they get to where they are? Or you'll have someone who will say, especially right now with working women and mothers in general, we still have the mommy wars going on. And so you have women who will say, oh, my husband does this and he comes home and my life is great. And other women will look at their husbands and go, why can't you be like that? And why don't I have that? Not understanding that you're not taking stock of what you have and trying to understand if that's even possible for you, because what someone else has most likely is not for you. What would you say to people, Dr. Angie, who struggle with comparing themselves to others, and why that is bad for us to do that to ourselves?
Well, I'm not going to answer. I'm going to let one of the wonderful people that I interviewed for my book answer that question.
Please do. Yes, thank you.
And I actually, in getting ready for today, when you let me know the topic that we're going to cover, and like I said, there's so much in those interviews and what they shared that just fits all of these different conversations about growth and not letting people steal our joy and all of that and finding our peace. So as often happens, I literally, I didn't even get as far as like thumbing through the book. I just like, bam, opened it up. There it was. So it was meant for today. So
Yes.
so this is from my book, Freedom. Freedom.
Mhm.
What is the experience of living without negative self-imposed limitations? And a couple of the people that I interviewed for this book, as we talked about their experience of going from a place of being stuck in their lives in some way. And that's what I mean by negative self-imposed limitations. You may have real limitations imposed upon you by a society, but this was about, within ourselves, if we're limiting ourselves in ways that are not healthy or that we shouldn't. So a couple of the people that I interviewed were musicians like myself. And so this gentleman is a musician. And so I'm going to read this little snippet. So this is this little introduction to the quote. So the introduction is, others also made, I was talking about the discoveries that the different people made whom I interviewed as they grew. Okay. Others also made exciting new discoveries about themselves. Tony, whom of course I changed the names, found that when he removed pressure from himself, when it came to his singing, he was able to really enjoy his gift. So before I even go farther with his quote, he removed pressure from himself. So let's just start with he. It's a personal choice that we have the power to look inwardly and stop comparing and looking out. So you have to make the decision to do it. He removed pressure from himself. Comparing ourselves to other people adds additional artificial pressure on ourselves. And it's artificial for all the reasons that you just said. It's unhealthy because their life is not your life. Even if you think you see parallels, and even if there are some parallels, there's still each unique journeys. Mm-hmm. So he removed the pressure from himself when it came to his singing. He was able to really enjoy his gift. When you stop that comparing, or even if you take just the first baby steps to say, you know what, let me be more conscious about when I compare and try and catch myself doing that so I can stop and say, well, no, wait a minute. Let me just look at my life. And what are the good things? What are the things I want to change? It goes hand in hand. It directly feeds into greater thankfulness and gratefulness, which we were talking about before also. So this was his quote. So quote, so now when I'm in a lesson or in my bedroom or whatever, and I'm singing, I don't think that I have to sing. My voice has grown a lot, and a lot of it I think is just physiology, but I think it's a mental state of I feel more comfortable just singing out and not worrying about what people think. And then he kind of does this quote of what people say. How did it, or what he, in his own thoughts. In other words, he's not worrying about, as he says, how did it sound? Did I sound all right? I just sing, and getting back to the basics of just, it sounds weird, but of releasing my gifts, of building on it. So he really, I just love the way he said that, because he really encapsulated that whole idea. It's the same thing with jealousy, comparing, all of those things. The more you get back into your own mirror and do your own self-work, stop thinking about, there's comparing with other people, and then there's comparing yourself to yourself too. It's one thing to work on your gift and say, okay, how is it sounding? Am I doing better? Am I growing? Okay, that part's great. But the unhealthy, toxic version that he's talking about is, every time he goes to do the thing or, work on the craft, in his case, from your example, every time you go to look at your marriage or your husband or your whatever, instead of it always being, well, why are you doing it this way and how and blah, blah, blah. As he said, he was really able to finally get back to the place of just singing for the joy of it, just enjoying the gift of it. And that's it's not just a metaphor and an analogy. I think it's quite literal, that when it comes to our own relationships, our own marriage, our own careers, with degrees or without, the more we can really just get back to, part of it is why we're there in the first place, why you're in this marriage in the first place. Get back to that this is someone, one would hope that you really just adored, you love. What were the things that you loved about him or her? What are those aspects, to really, really get back to appreciating that. Yes, you can build on, there are no perfect relationships because there are no perfect people. There are
Right.
things we need to grow and change, but staying in touch and in tune with, just like he said about his gift, just the joy of it. Like, you know, don't get so far away from that, the joy of that. If you're not where, for the career person, if you're not where you want to be, you know, you with the degrees or not having the degrees, sometimes it's a hint or a signal to maybe take stock and rethink. Is this something that is this the direction you should go in your career? Is it a hint of maybe making some change? And that can be exciting and wonderful too. You may be on the precipice of exploring and discovering new things or new ways of pursuing a career. If it is what you're supposed to do, again, stay in touch or get back in touch with why you love the work, why you love the thing that you're doing in your career or careers. And then look at, well, if I'm not where I want to be, you know, what kinds of things do I need to do to be able to get there? But doing it with appreciation and not with just like, you know, constantly like beating yourself, staying in a constant state of frustration and stress, comparing. You can look at other people and say, you know what, as models, like, you know, I think I'd like to do what she's doing. I think I'd like, and I'm not there. Okay, what do I need? Maybe I made some wrong steps or changed some things. Taking stock is always a good, healthy thing to do, but do it in connection with your passion and what you're excited about and what you really want to pursue.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So I want to ask this last question before we sum up. No is a complete sentence. Dr. Angie, why is it so hard to say no?
Oh my goodness. You know, actually, you're absolutely right. It is a complete sentence. When you first said no, I thought I saw in my head KNOW. I was like, no. I was like, yes, it is. I know. Yes. But you had the other no. Yes. Okay, I get it. No. Okay, this is what I would say to that.
Okay.
We often think that, and we often live like that. You're absolutely right. We live as though no is so difficult. But I would say this in response. It is not nearly as difficult as we think it is, because we say no all the time. The difficult thing is not no, not the sentence of no, but it's to whom, about what, and when. Now, I think it's very telling that if your beautiful, precious child is walking out into the middle of the street with a semi-truck coming, most parents are not struggling with that sentence.
Right.
There's no struggle. No. It's not. I had that was easy as pie. I thought it wasn't difficult. So it's not the no that's difficult. It's to whom, when, and why. If no is difficult because we are having unreal expectations, like, or how can I put it? Like an example in a relationship. You know, this person is treating you with less respect than you deserve, for example, and you find it difficult to say no. You're like, put a stack. No, I'm not going to allow you to, you know, if you find it difficult to say no to that, that can be because of expectations, self-esteem, how you view yourself. Am I afraid? Fear is a big part of that. Am I afraid he's going to leave me or she's going to leave me? There's all of that. So is it no that's difficult, or is it all these ideas about what no will mean and the consequences of it? I think that, like we've talked about before, I always say it can be easier to understand how we should interact in terms of relationships if we replace ourselves with someone we passionately love and care about. Because we would never treat that person or allow that person, if we saw that person we really care about and love, our sister or uncle or whomever, in a relationship where they're being treated badly or abused or whatever, we would want to say something or step in or figure something out, or, you know, we would want to get them out of that. So we need to, what's the very first lesson is love yourself. Can't love it. So we should take that passionate love for that child or that person and apply it to ourselves. And when we do that, then saying no can become easier. You know, what do I deserve? as a human being, as a child of God. You know, I think we use deserve a lot because people have beat themselves down so much. And I do understand that we should be treated with respect and all that, which is true. Sometimes I think people abuse deserve too. You know, I deserve. Go somewhere and sit down. Sometimes just go somewhere and sit down and be thankful and humble. Humble. Okay, I let the old Tennessean folks that raised me, my grandma, great grandma, Go somewhere and sit down. That, you know, the old Christians, they used to talk about, I am not worthy, but thank you, Jesus, that you saved me, and that because you are worthy, please, you know, and I'm worth. You are valuable. You are so worthwhile because the Lord made you and the Lord loves you. You absolutely are. That is all so true. But how about you just go somewhere and sit down and expect the best because God wants the best for you. How about that? Let's just do that.
That is a perfect end, Dr. Angie. So we have to remember, first off, that we have a relationship with the Father in heaven. Yes. If you don't believe in God, please believe that there is something greater than you that is in control, that is all powerful, that can guide you, help you with anything that you need. We also need to remember our past, learn the lessons from our history, understand why things happen so that we can move forward. Remember that we are valuable, that we should love ourselves and respect ourselves enough that we respect others, so that when we have disagreements or when we're comparing ourselves, we remember the things that other people have are not necessarily for us. The Bible always says what God has for you is for you, not anybody else. And I'm a personal witness to that. When there is something that is for you, you may doubt and say, God, I don't have a degree in that, or God, I don't know anybody there, or God, I don't have any money, or God, I don't have the resources necessary to pull this off. And then you do whatever it is that you're supposed to do. God will multiply. I think it is very important that, as you said, understanding when to say no. And I've been waiting to ask you that question for a while. Understanding when to say no, to whom, to when, and what it's for. You know, understanding that if you respect and value yourself, that will make that decision all the more easy. And I think for many of us, we don't necessarily value ourselves the way that we should. And a good friend of mine said to me recently, she said, Kim, oftentimes we don't see ourselves the way others see us. So sometimes you got to step back and see yourself. When people say, Dr. Angela, you are a brilliant psychologist, you are a brilliant musician and so creative and wonderful, you have to accept that. Because I know people have said things like that to me, not necessarily that, but compliments. And I'll say, oh, thank you. And then I'll give some sort of explanatory statement afterwards. Well, you know, you don't even need that. Just say thank you. Let it go. Because it was true. This isn't about people trying to fake you out or using you. These are people that are giving you legitimate compliments. But we have to get back to loving ourselves, having God as our centerpiece, and understanding how things should work, how they do work, and understanding how they have worked in the past, and then taking those lessons so we know how to move forward. Thank you, Dr. Angie, for coming on and explaining that for us. Again, we send our prayers out to the Ukrainian people. Absolutely. But before we go, Dr. Angie, you got to tell us, first off, how we can find you on social media. You got to give us your websites. You have to tell us where we can find your books, your music, and anything else that you have going on.
Thank you so very much. So my music, you can find me, you can go to my Reverb Nation site, which is Reverb with a B, reverbnation.com/Angela Celeste May, CELESTE. And yeah, you can see all the music from my two albums and other information about me. You can find me on Facebook at Angela Celeste May. I've got to change my name at the bottom of my Zoom, so I have my middle name, Celeste, Celeste. So Angela Celeste May, Facebook, Angela Celeste May. My YouTube channel is it's mainly for music stuff. So I talk about music genres, talk about vocal quick tips, and lots of good helpful information for fellow singers and musicians, and really anyone who uses the voice. And that means spoken word artists, public speakers, teachers, all that. So go to the YouTube channel, Angela Celeste May, Facebook, Angela Celeste May. My music Facebook separate is Dr. Angela Celeste May. You can find me on Twitter and follow me there, Angela Celeste May, and same thing with Instagram, Angela Celeste May. Let's see. Oh, you can find my music at iTunes. Where else? Apple iTunes, CD Baby. My book Freedom, you can find that at Amazon, on Amazon.com, and also at Xlibris. So it's an Xlibris. Xlibris. Did I say it right? I always do that. Xlibris. every time. What else? Oh, okay. And then my in terms of psychology. Oh, also one other thing about music. If you are in the Metro Detroit area, I do teach in person at my studio. So you can contact me at any of those sites, but also you can email me at Celeste. So CELESTEMUS on the number 1 at AOL.com. On the psychology side, I, in addition to teaching, I teach psychology at the university level, but also I have my company, of course, with my sister Michelle. So that's A.M. as in Mary May, A.M. May Associates at gmail.com. That's the company email. And you can find me drangela@gmail.com if you want to inquire about some of we do counseling, consulting, and coaching, any of our services. Our website is amaassociates.com. That's the website. And also, again, our Facebook is AMA Associates. So you can see all the different stuff that we're doing. I think I covered just about everything.
You have a coaching group. You have to talk about it.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you. So under the AMA, actually, I've got a couple of them under AMA and Associates. As I mentioned, we do. My sister provides the counseling. I did therapy for a number of years, but I stepped away from doing therapy several years ago. But our company still offers it through my sister for counseling. I do consulting for lots of different size businesses and companies, and then the coaching part. We offer personal, professional, I do doctoral, and we also offer creative coaching. So anything that you're working on, you need some coaching help with, we do that. At this moment, as you mentioned, and thank you for that, we have, we're just wrapping up our we have a women's power group, coaching group that meets, we did 10 sessions this last time that we're winding down. We have a new one that's coming up in a couple of weeks. So go to our Facebook page, you can go to my Facebook page, you can go to Michelle May on Facebook as well, or Instagram, any of those, and look at the information for our next cohort of women coming up. We have 10 slots, and we've got only a few slots left, 10 slots maximum. So the power group for women, we meet every other week. We're going to do eight sessions, and if you want to push to the next level and keep growing in your career and your development, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, we've had some wonderful success with some amazing women and helping them grow to their next level. So check that out. Also, I have a men's group as well. I'm very excited about as well. This is a stress management coaching group specifically for Black men. So I'm finishing up, actually, also this next week will be the last week of this cohort. I did it during Black History Month, but I will be doing it again. So again, follow us, sign up so you can get all that information, and come join us and get some wonderful help and continued growth. So
Excellent, Dr. Angie. Thank you for that. And thank you for being on the Kim B. Davis Show. We look forward to seeing you next month, I'm sure, with another exciting topic.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here.
Thank you. We always love it when you come. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Kim B. Davis Show. You know, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, LinkedIn, everywhere on social media. And it's Kimberly Batchelor Davis. Bachelor is spelled BATCHELOR. And you can see this show on youtube.com/Kimberly Batchelor Davis. You can hear this show on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google. You can learn more about me as an author at kimbdavis.com. Thank you again for tuning in. We hope you'll join us on our next show. And as always, remember, be magnificent.